From the center of the universe, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, this is the SDM Show with your host, Rob Cairns. The SDM Show focuses on business, life, productivity, digital marketing, WordPress, and more. Sit back, relax, grab your favorite drink, and enjoy the show. Here is Rob.
Hey everybody, I'm Rob Cairns. I'm the founder, CEO, and chief technologist at Stunning Digital Marketing. In today's show, I have AJ Cassata with me, and AJ and I are going to talk about cold outreach and how to do it the right way. Sit back, relax, enjoy this. The SDM show is brought to you by Stunning Digital Marketing, the digital marketing concierge that helps you put all your marketing pieces together. We are your marketing experts. We are also your WordPress security experts and know how to lock down a website and protect yourself from bad actors. So contact us at Stunning Digital Marketing today. Hey everybody, Rob Cairns here, and today I have my guest AJ Kazata. Hey AJ, how you doing, man?
Hey Rob, I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me on the show. Excited to dive in today.
Yeah, it's such a pleasure. Before we get to today's topic, you were coming to us from Vietnam, right? If I recall right.
I am, yeah. So I'm from New York originally, but 6 years or so after I'd been a couple years into the digital marketing agency and kind of built a remote team, I left to travel and never went home, other than visits, of course. But yeah, I moved to Asia.
And being out of the US is probably not a bad thing right now with all the mess going on there. I'm kind of,
Yeah,
kind of shaking my head. So it's
yeah,
not
you
all
definitely
that
got that
bad.
right. Yeah.
Uh, so we're going to talk today about cold outreach, right? And how not to make it spammy. And that's really a topic dear to my heart. But how did you get into the whole agency space and uh, getting into cold outreach and all of that?
Yeah, for sure. So I started my career actually in door-to-door sales. I was working for a construction company in college and they needed salespeople. So I ended up doing door-to-door sales and knocking on maybe like tens of thousands of doors. So that was kind of how I first got into marketing and sales. I ended up growing within the company and helping with other aspects of marketing and getting to build a sales team of like 20 different people doing door-to-door sales, which was really
Mm.
cool. And then once this was maybe back in like 2013, 2014. Once I had started to explore with like generating leads online for the company, I was really just hooked with digital marketing because I was like, especially coming from, New York and being in the winter and having to go outside and knock on, 500 doors on a Saturday, a residential neighborhoods, that was definitely no fun. So once I learned there was a way I could generate leads for the company without having to leave my house, that was just like, at that point I was all in. But I grew with the company for a few different years, around 5 years or so. And then on the side, I knew I wanted to start an agency because I ultimately did have the goal to be able to travel like this. So I first started a Facebook and Google Ads agency, and it was really just very random. Like I started just helping out some local business owners and friends in my network with anything they needed with digital marketing. It wasn't really like an agency; it was just more like,
Yeah.
hey, like I'm kind of doing marketing in my job, and I have some extra time, and I'd love to just help you out with X, Y, and Z. But it was really
Yep.
just kind of just exploring the space. But I ended up settling on doing a Facebook and Google Ads agency once I really learned that like that was a great way to give value because a lot of businesses just weren't running ads, and back then it was so cheap as well. But long story short, I had built this PPC agency, and cold outreach was actually the main way we had gotten clients by sending cold emails and targeted LinkedIn DMs, and we had landed some really really big clients just by sending simple targeted emails. And for me, it was like it dawned on me that there was a huge opportunity with this because we were getting all these clients without really having to spend money on marketing. And a lot of peers of mine, like other agency owners, were asking me always, they were always asking me questions around how you're doing cold outreach and how are you doing cold email and just how we were getting clients. And I started helping them, just helping out again, friends for free, but then ended up doing a couple of consulting jobs. And then I realized that there was even more demand, at least that I come across, for companies to learn this cold outreach thing versus the main service we were selling, which was ads. So I ended up just actually building a business to help other agency owners, learn cold outreach and just have a way to get clients. Because I found that ironically, a lot of digital marketing agencies don't really have their own digital marketing systems, right? They don't really have a way to get clients for
Yep.
themselves, and
True.
it's ironic, but it makes sense because a lot of times they're doing the marketing they do for their clients is different than like B2B marketing. Like they might not necessarily understand how to get leads and clients for themselves because it's a different environment, right? So yeah, I kind of found a niche doing that, and we built this company like 4.5 years ago.
Yeah, there's a couple things that come out of that conversation right away. You started in sales and then you got into marketing. And I think one of the
Mm.
biggest problems with what we do, especially with bigger companies, is there's such a big disconnect between the sales department and the marketing department. They have separate
Yeah,
goals, even though they're both trying to raise revenue for a company, right? And then the other
yeah.
thing you mentioned that's really interesting is how to do, we were talking emails and you mentioned LinkedIn DMs. I swear LinkedIn DMs, most people don't know how to reach out without being spammy. Like if
Definitely.
you and I both know what the world of LinkedIn is like. I manage a large group on LinkedIn that's over, last count was about 18,000 people.
Oh
I
wow.
co-manage, and I'll tell you, being a co-manager of an 18,000 person group, let alone my agency, let alone what I do, just leads me to spammy DMs all day, every day. And I woke up this morning just to share with you, great topic. And what do I get first thing in the morning is an email from a web dev agency
Oh
basically
no.
telling, no, worse, basically telling me my website sucked without saying it. First of all, which means you'd never want to work with them again because
Of
negativity
course.
doesn't work in my book. And then telling me I needed a redesign and I should hire them without even knowing them. The typical cold email, you know,
Yeah.
SEO agencies are prone to this. What do you think of all that? Like really?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think in general, there's a right way to do cold outreach and there's a wrong way. And most people do it the wrong
Oh,
way because if you just look at most cold emails, you might get like, we don't respond to most of them. I don't respond to like 95% of them, but then every once in a while I'll get a really good one. But it's such a powerful channel worth learning, right? Because for a lot of our clients, cold outbound is really like their number one source of leads. Like when you can
yep,
really get it right and do it in a different way, it's very powerful, very reliable, very predictable. But yeah, unfortunately, most people like do it the way that you said. And there's a couple things that if we just kind of analyze that email that you got, there's a couple things that are definitely very wrong with that. First, like you mentioned, that he told you that your website was terrible, right? And I'm guessing he probably didn't even look at it. He's probably just sending that message out to
yep,
everybody. Because if
yep,
he looked at your website, he would probably wouldn't have emailed you because he would have seen that you guys do web dev as well, right?
yep.
Um, so I think number one, just the targeting is off, which is surprisingly like very, very common. Like half the emails I get, I'm like, you shouldn't have sent me this email. Like I'm definitely not your prospect. So I think a lot of people just aren't really going about the list building process right. And that's going to
Yep.
hurt your credibility and not only just waste a lot of time talking to like not the right leads. So we could talk a little bit about some list building strategies later, but that's definitely I think the biggest red flag. Second is that he told you your website stinks and just was very negative about it. Now there's a way that you can show someone they have a problem and do it in a way where you don't make them feel bad or you don't feel like you're attacking them, right? Because like you said, negativity, especially for cold outreach, like if you're reaching out to someone who doesn't know you, you haven't really earned that right just to say like, hey, you're doing this wrong, right?
Huh?
Even in a sales call, like even if you meet someone on a Zoom or in person, and you shouldn't, say that in the first 15 minutes of meeting them. Like there's a time and place to kind of bring that up after you've built some rapport. So I think it's just way too early in the process to say something like that. But again, there's ways of framing it. Like rather than saying someone's website stinks, you could say, "Hey, your website's great, but I noticed that you're missing this feature, which could help you actually get another 20% conversions if you added a chatbot." Like there's a way where you can do it in a way that's educational and useful versus just saying, "Hey, this is bad and you should hire me to fix it," right? The third problem I could see with your outreach, and again, most of the outreach I see out there, is that people are really trying to sell in it. And I know it sounds counterintuitive, but you actually shouldn't be trying to sell when you're doing cold outreach. You shouldn't really be trying to sell your services. You should just be trying to start a conversation because at the end of the day, if I'm going to reach out to you and try to sell you a $5,000 or $10,000 website, I'm not going to do that in a 15-second email, right? It's
Yep.
just trying to cram too much of the sales process into one little step where this person doesn't even know you 5 seconds ago, right? So the way that we find that works really well with cold outreach is we're just really trying to start a conversation and we're just asking people to reply. So like we're not sending links out, we're not sending funnels or counter links. Every call to action we have in every email we do is pretty much, hey, would you like to learn more? Or hey, do you have this problem? Or hey, are you thinking about X, Y, and Z? It's just really like a question to get the conversation going. So I like to think about it that it's about conversations, but not conversions, right? really you just like the way that, and we can talk about copy as well, but the way that we find the most success with our cold outreach, whether it's email or LinkedIn, or even if you're doing cold calls, is you're just trying to really poke at the problem the person has and kind of let them know you have a solution, but you're not trying to really go very in detail about that solution. Because again, people didn't really ask for it, right? They didn't really opt in to be on your list. So it's just more about piquing their curiosity and seeing if they'd like to have another conversation offline.
Yeah. And going back to the list, I think a lot of people don't curate their list properly. I've said this and I've said this and I've said this, and they don't know how to segment their list so they generate the same cold outreach email to 10,000 people instead of maybe
Mm.
to 1,000 people it applies to.
Yeah. That's one of the most important things we've seen when we've segmented campaigns versus we haven't. Like the results are night and day difference. Because if you think about it, if you have to send one email to 10,000 people, you're going to have to make your message pretty generic so that it's kind of like sort of relates to everybody on the list, right?
Hmm.
So essentially you water down your message the bigger the list is, right? But if you have, 10 lists of 1,000 people and each of those sets of 1,000 people is a different industry or maybe a different job title, like maybe someone's in marketing versus someone's the owner of the company, then you can really cater your message to that specific person. And then when someone opens your email, they're not going to be like, oh crap, another cold email, another generic cold email. They're going to feel like, oh wow, this person really researched me or my company, or like they actually have something relevant to help me in my day-to-day job, right? So yeah, like there's a few different ways that we segment, but typically the most important ones are the company size,
Yeah.
the industry, and the job title. Because the company size is huge, first of all. If you're going to be emailing a small business with 10 employees versus a business that has 500 employees, those are two totally different companies and they have different problems and different, metrics and KPIs they're measured on, right? Um, and also like they speak a different language, right? So if you're reaching a CEO of a 10-person company versus a CEO of a 500 person company, again, the way that you communicate to them is very different because the way that the problems they have, the priorities they have, the goals they have, and the way that they explain those is just very, very different, right? So you really want to get that specific message to that specific segment. And again, it's not
Yeah.
that hard to do. It's just a matter of taking a couple hours to just, segment the list right, and just make sure you're not taking the lazy way, which is one email blast to everybody.
Yeah, and I think too many people in this are lazy. The other thing you mentioned is you were saying agencies don't always generate or know how to generate cold emails for themselves, even though they do advertising for everybody else. And I think part of the problem is that agencies have that everybody else has is they don't dedicate time in their schedule to building their own business. They're always chasing the next client, the next best thing, but they don't concentrate in their
Mhm.
schedules on what's really important, that's building their own brand.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. I've sat in and worked with a lot of agency owners, clients of ours, but then just, agencies I've done consulting with, and I always find the same problem, especially with agencies that are like
Mhm.
solopreneur or maybe six figures, is they just don't really dedicate there's no structured time for business development. And in
Yeah.
my opinion, in the beginning, it should be at least half of your time. Like if you spend 50% of your time on business development, marketing, and sales, you're always going to have a healthy, growing agency. Now, obviously, that can fluctuate depending on how much client work there is and what stage you're at. But for most people I sit down with, it's usually like less than 10%. Or really like they just maybe deal with referrals that come in and inbound opportunities, but they're not actually
Yeah.
doing any marketing. And that's a dangerous spot because what happens if, especially recently, like, it's pretty shaky with the economy and all of the news happening in the world, right? Like what
Yeah.
happens if there's a downturn and you lose half your clients in a month or in a couple months, right? Like if you don't have a plan to replace those, then you could really be in a tough spot. So it's not always about like scaling. It's to me a lot of marketing and sales is just about having that safety, having that reliability, and just really building a business that's stable more than anything.
Yeah, I always say it's easier to generate more clients when you're busy. And a lot of agencies subscribe to that
Mm.
theory that, oh, we're busy. Like we all know if you're in retail, December's insane. And most even companies and agencies curtail all their marketing and saying, I'm not going to do anything till the new year. I think that's
Yeah.
a mistake. I think that's a mistake, actually, because how do people know who you are in the new year if you're not doing it now? So
Mm, totally.
I think they're they're playing the feast or famine game, and that's not a good long-term strategy at all.
Yeah, absolutely not. I've made the same mistake in the past as, once we've gotten really busy, we kind of take our foot off the gas on marketing.
Yeah.
But I'll never make that same mistake again. For now, our rule is if we have to slow down the marketing a little bit, we'll slow it down, but we'll never stop it. Like there should always be some marketing happening. Because you brought up a great point, Rob. Like if you want to get clients in January, that work has to happen now. Like marketing isn't just, oh, I want clients tomorrow. Well, let me make a campaign or post something and I'm going to get clients, right? Like it's especially if we're all here in B2B, right? Or a lot of us listening are in B2B. There are long sales cycles,
Yep.
right? People really need to like see you and get to know you and trust you before they're ready to make a decision. So it should always be always there should always be something happening.
Yep. Um, I can't have a marketing conversation anymore without mentioning two wonderful letters, and they start with A and they end in I. And you know
Yeah.
where I'm going because you're smiling. Does AI come a lot into this process these days?
Yeah, we've been doing some really cool things with AI and outreach. I think like one of my favorite uses in AI in marketing overall, not just outreach, is definitely for like research and ideation. So
Yep. Yep.
when we're so like for us, we run a cold email agency. So we work with a lot of different business B2B businesses that just hire us to run campaigns for them because they don't want to deal with it, right? And the challenge with that, which I'm sure any agency owner can relate to, is that you're dealing with clients that have different industries and different offers, and they're selling into different market segments. And to make great campaigns and to write really good copy, you have to have a really good understanding of who you're selling to, right? So one of my favorite use cases for AI is just research on steroids, right?
Mhm.
So we'll take like a client's intake form, we'll take the content from their website, throw that into AI, and it'll give us like the specific language that customer avatar uses, the nuances, the problems they
Yep.
have, the trends in their industry, the objections. So that's really good as well. And then of course we do that for our own business as well to be able to write content and build our own campaigns. So I love it for research. I love it for ideation. Like I think what one of the hardest parts of writing is looking at a blank page, right? But now there's no more blank pages with AI, right? So like I'm not
Mhm.
often using AI to like write all of my content, but I'll definitely use it for coming up with like 10 ideas, or maybe I'll like talk into a voice note about an idea I have for a campaign or an angle. And I'll say, hey, give me 10 different email examples for this, or 10 different post ideas if I'm like writing a LinkedIn post. And then I can maybe pick the ones I like and then kind of ask for more variation. So it's just great at like that brainstorming process. For me, it's like really very much a thinking partner. I find that's where I'm using it the most is like research and ideation and just kind of getting the wheels turning, right?
Yeah, I agree with you. It's funny. I was running some tests on the weekend between Gemini and the new Chat GPT 5. And
Oh
truly,
yeah.
and I find with that kind of research, I think Gemini outranks Chat GPT 5 every time. Like I ran several on the weekend. I don't know what you found, but I think Gemini's a better route, in my opinion.
Yeah, I haven't messed around with it yet, but I've been meaning to because I keep seeing all my friends on social media and now you as well, saying that they tried it and it's way better. So I'm definitely excited to try that out.
Yeah, and I'm
Um,
in, and I have to say, I'm all in a Google world in my agency, and I'm all in with a Google phone. So even more so, it just adds to it even more because the Gemini's baked into the new Pixel phones, and it just makes it a lot easier. Um, let's go to LinkedIn. My favorite cold outreach topic of what not to do. And
yeah.
I chuckle when I say that. We all know the deal. Somebody does some research. They're working for a marketing agency. They connect with you, and what's the first thing you get? Here's a list of what I'm selling, and buy from me now.
Yeah, like a big
Why?
brochure, right?
Yeah. Why did people insist on doing this? Like I just shake my head at it.
Yeah, I don't know. I think for some reason, they just think it works, or maybe they bought some course somewhere that said this is how to do LinkedIn outreach, because a lot of them really look the same. But it's funny. Like I just like to think when I'm doing any sort of online outreach, just think about like
Yep.
what I would do in person. Like you wouldn't walk up to someone at a conference, right, and just say, "Hey, here's 10 things that I sell. Like, do you want any of them?" Right? Like someone would eventually throw a drink in your face, right?
Mhm.
So if you could just think about like how you'd approach someone in person at an event, I think that's a much more helpful frame. to actually do outreach in a way that's genuine and adds value and is really building a relationship rather than taking. Because just reaching out to someone right away and saying, "Hey, here's the 10 things I sell," it's really just like it gives off this energy of I'm just trying to take from you and take money from you, right? Um, so the opposite of that would just be actually like talk about the person you're reaching out to. Read their profile, their website, their case studies. Find something useful you can say about their business. When you actually have personalized outreach, that the response rate on that is way higher because it's rare these days. Again, most people are just sending out their sales pitches, but very few people are actually researching who they're reaching out to and having an observation or a compliment or something, something useful to actually an insight to offer about their business, right? So especially on LinkedIn, like it's so easy just to look at someone's profile and maybe find some common ground or something that you can actually say to connect it to your offer. So that's like one thing you can do on LinkedIn that just makes a huge difference and will make you stand out from everyone.
Yeah, and I always say to people, if you want to be successful with cold outreach, make yourself look like an expert. Don't worry about the sales, they'll come. What do you think about that? Like, help people.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, and the best way to help someone is the best way to make someone believe you can help them is just by actually helping them, right? So I'm a big advocate for lead magnets and just giving free value. Because
Yeah.
again, it's very few people do it, right? Because it does take more effort and more time. But when we're running cold outreach campaigns, whether it's LinkedIn or another channel like cold email, we pretty much are always testing some sort of lead magnet. And it's not always like a lead magnet, like a downloadable thing, like a worksheet or a PDF or a free like course or something. Very often, what we find success with is actually, inviting people to a call to help them with something, right? So let's say that you're a web dev agency, you could offer someone a website audit, right? You could give them like an SEO report, or you can actually maybe send them like a Loom video reviewing their website and just showing them a couple things that they could do to increase conversions, right? You can always, like, no matter what service you're selling, you can usually find one or two small things, quick wins that you could do for someone for free. And that's going to really go a long way in your outreach because, like you said, people want to see that you're an expert and if they're getting pitched, like especially if you're selling, marketing services, people are getting pitched by 10 other agencies every day, right? So
Yeah.
if you're reaching out cold, they don't really know you already, they haven't been referred to you. You really have to build that trust. So it's a great way to get responses, but it's also a great way to actually get people to trust you and have a little bit of trust and belief in what you're doing before they actually hop on a sales call.
I agree with you. And I would also say with trust, social proof goes a long way. Where are you? What have you done in the social space? Are you
Mm.
accessible in the social space? I think that's important today too, as well.
Yeah, definitely. So like for us at our agency, when we take on clients that already have a pretty established online presence, it's always going to have a better outcome than
Yeah.
clients who just have no online presence, right? Because if someone gets a cold email from you and they're pretty interested in your offer, very often they might Google your name or Google your company name or check you out on LinkedIn. And if they find nothing, I feel like nowadays it's like almost suspicious, right? Like you have to have some digital presence.
Yeah.
Like at least have one channel that you post content on, at least have an updated modern website. A lot of these things you could just do in half a day or a day, especially with AI now, right? But very important because again, people, when you're reaching out to someone cold, they don't know you. And if they like what you have to say, there's a good chance they'll check you out, and there should be something for them to find and really some content that they can binge or get a better sense for like your methodology and what you do.
Yeah. Um, we talked about copy. Copy's so important about getting the right, and it helps get the right message across. What do you look out
Hmm.
for when you're writing copy in a cold outreach?
Yeah, so the biggest thing, like I mentioned earlier at the start of the chat, is really focusing on not selling, but just starting a conversation. So,
Yeah.
you shouldn't really be talking in detail about your offers or your services, your products, nothing about pricing. You're not really trying to sell. It's more about talking about the problem rather than the product, right? So, the first thing everyone should think about is what is the problem that I'm solving? And not just the problem that I think I'm solving, but what is the problem that my customer is coming to solve? Like, how do they phrase it, right? How do they view the problem,
Mhm.
right? Why are they coming to me for SEO services or web dev or whatever it is I'm selling, right? So it's really about nailing the problem you solve and then the outcome of solving that problem. So, if I solve this problem, how does my business get better? What changes? What numbers improve? How does my life get better? So it's really more about keeping the high level problems and the outcomes in mind. Because at the end of the day, whatever service you're selling, your service is just a means of solving a problem so that someone can get an outcome or a benefit that they want, right? So those are the two things you really have to nail, because people only want to know about the service and the features and the mechanism after they feel like, okay, this actually is something that can help me with a problem I have or some sort of outcome or goal I'm trying to achieve. So really important to understand that. If you don't really understand that, you have to really do some research and ideally talk to your customers and just ask them like why they hired you in the first place. What were they coming to you to solve? What other options were they considering? Like that's really, really useful insight if you're already not clear on this. But yeah, first things first is the problem and the outcome. If you're going to be even saying your solution at all, it should be like maybe a sentence or two, but no longer than that. Because again, the whole idea is just pique their interest, see if they want to have a conversation, and if they do, then you can have them on a call where you can actually tell them more about like how you're going to help them achieve that outcome, right? But
Yeah.
you definitely shouldn't be giving a long list of your services or features or nothing like that. Just one or two sentences max about like the how. Other than that, I would say it should be very, very short and sweet. So all of the cold emails we send are like 3 to 5 sentences. And this is for a few reasons. One, just because if you have to realize if you're a sales email, you're a sales outreach, people aren't prioritizing you, right? Like people are in their inbox and they're going to be prioritizing their partners, their clients, the fires they have to put out, the messages from their team. They're definitely not going to sit there and read a 300 word sales letter, right? You really have to just get the point across right away. So a lot of times if people see that it's a sales email, they might just quickly skim it, if anything, and then just delete it if they don't find anything that they like. So, but if the email is so long, 3 to 4 sentences, then they pretty much have to read the whole thing, right? It's not like they can really skim it. You want them to really consume the whole message. The other thing is too is most emails are read on mobile. It's over 80%.
Yep.
So if you have a long email, then it's really a lot of scrolling, and again, people just aren't going to prioritize you. And really, like you have to consider the medium, right? So when people are in their email inbox, it's different than other platforms. It's like it's different than platforms like Facebook or Instagram or YouTube. Because when you're on those channels, like social media, you're kind of usually killing time, right? Like maybe you're waiting online or you're in a car, hopefully not driving, but maybe you're getting a ride somewhere. Or you're, just maybe you have a little bit of time at the end of at the end of your day to catch up on social media, right? But typically people are on social media because they want to be entertained, they want to be educated, and they kind of have some time to waste, so to speak. Whereas with email, that's not the case, right? People are usually logging into their work email at the very beginning of their day and they're trying to just get in there and get out, right? They want to just clear out their tasks. Like people look at email more as a to-do list, right? It's not really like a content consumption channel, right? So
Yeah.
with that in mind, if people are just trying to get in their email quick and out, very quickly at the beginning of the day, you just have to again get to that point really, really quick, right? Because you haven't earned their attention compared to all the other things in their inbox that are frankly more important. So if they're going to even open your email, they should really be able to find out within like 1 to 2 sentences, is this email worth reading? So you should be getting to the value proposition or the problem really within the first 2 sentences. Ideally, like the framework we use is, let them know why you're reaching out. So some sort of reason why you picked this person to reach out. Then get to the problem and the benefit of solving that problem, share some supporting social proof to back up your claim, and then have a call to action, which usually is just like, hey, would you like to have a conversation? So that's it, just 4 sentences. If you're going any longer, then really you're adding a lot of unnecessary information because that's really all someone would need to know at a first contact to know if they should, chat with you further.
Yeah, it's so true. Um, I'm a new agency. I come to you saying I'd like to get on a cold outreach program. Where do we start? What do you start doing?
Yeah, so the first thing we do is definitely that detailed research on who we're selling to. So before running any cold outreach campaign, it's really important to be clear on the fundamentals. So we'll walk through this with a client over a couple of calls and have them fill out a form. We want to be clear on the who, the what, and also the why. So who exactly we're reaching out to? What's the niche we're targeting? And maybe if you have a few different industries or a few different types of businesses or people that you work with, you want to really segment those out, like we mentioned earlier. Segment them based on industry, company size, if it's B2B, right? The actual job title or
Yeah.
the individual you're reaching out to. So you want to figure out, who exactly we're trying to sell to. If you have a lot of different customer avatars, a lot of different ICPs, then really just try to pick the two or three that are the most valuable to you. Whether it's the people that are the most likely to sign with you, the most easy to sell, or maybe they are just the most profitable for your business. But you want to really pick your best customer segments and start there. Then it's the what. What exactly are we selling, right? What's like one particular offer you can have for each of those market segments? And then the why is the messaging, right? Like that, this is where we want to figure out
Yeah.
why should this person care about what we're selling? Like what is the true benefit to them? What is the outcome that they're after? What are the specific problems that they're already thinking about and already facing right now that we can talk about in our messaging, right? Because if we can really talk about a problem that's already on someone's mind, the chance of them responding is way, way higher, right? So that's what we're trying to figure out first. We'll usually sit there with the client and map it out, use some AI to do some research to kind of fill in some of those gaps. And then ultimately, we're coming up with a campaign strategy. So um, when doing cold outreach, I don't recommend just creating one campaign and just praying and hoping for the best. You really just want to do a lot of A/B testing and take a very scientific approach to it. So, we might have a couple of different target markets, and then in each of those target markets, we might have a couple of different key messages or angles we want to take with the copy. And then maybe we might even also want to test a few of those different lead magnets, like we talked about before, helping people giving value and showcasing your
Yeah.
expertise up front. So we'll kind of organize all of that into different tests. Typically, we'll come up with a ton of ideas and then maybe pick like the best 5 or 10 that we want to test first, that we have the highest chance of that we believe has the highest chance of succeeding. But yeah, we're definitely not putting all of our eggs in one basket. You always want to just run A/B tests, and that goes for all sorts of marketing, right? Like no matter what you're doing, you should always be testing because you don't really know what's going to work. So you want to just give yourself the best chance of success and try. Because there's been a lot of times where I've been surprised by a campaign that worked really well that I didn't really have a lot of faith in versus sometimes I've written an email sequence and I thought, oh, this is definitely going to work, and then it just fell flat. So you never really know, and you don't really want to just guess. You just want to kind of test through all of the possible ways of reaching and resonating with your target market.
Now, what on a cold outreach campaign, what kind of percentage is considered a success? I know typically with standard email campaigns, like standard emails or newsletters or that kind, typically anything around typically 20% is really good. What do you consider
Mm.
success in a cold outreach?
Yeah, and you mean for like a open rate or click-through rate?
Yeah, open rates and click-through rates. Yeah, exactly where I'm going.
Yeah, so it's pretty high for cold outreach. Typically, we're getting 30-40% minimum open rates. But
Okay.
we don't judge our campaigns based on open rates, and I don't recommend the listeners do either, just because it's a little bit different. Because really, you want to be just getting people to have conversations, right? So the
Yeah,
metric we look at is how many replies are we getting that are actually leads, right?
yeah,
Um, so typically you might get like 2% reply rate. And then maybe only a few of those replies are actually people that want to have a sales conversation with you. So that's the metric that we're tracking. How many actual positive replies are we getting per campaign? And it varies a lot per industry, but typically we're aiming for like one positive reply for every 300 to 400 emails, which might sound low, but really like at the end of the day, there's only a certain percentage of people in your target market that actually need what you're selling now, right? And
yeah.
only a certain percentage of those will even like open an email or even like respond to a cold email, right?
Yeah, but and by the way, I always say the metric should be out of any campaign, not click-throughs or open rates, but how many leads you generate,
Yeah,
regardless of what it is, because I think people get hung up on, oh, well, I got a 50% open rate. Yeah, that's nice, but if it generated no leads, who cares? Like, honestly,
exactly. Yeah, totally. I mean,
yeah,
you can't take your opens and clicks to the bank, right? Only the leads and the sales.
yeah. Do you have any other quick tips for somebody starting a cold outreach campaign, what they should or should not do?
Yeah, I would just say first, be patient with it. It can work pretty quick. We had a client recently where in the first week and a half, they got 10 booked meetings, and they had like a fintech tool. So it could
Yeah.
definitely work off the bat, but no matter what, like expect that it doesn't, and just know that you'll have to just do a lot of testing. I would say if you're going to try this channel out, give it at least 3 to 6 months of proper attention or hire a company for that period of time. Because again, plenty of times we've launched a campaign and it hasn't worked, and then we try something different and it works great. So you just have to really, really keep trying. It works for like pretty much every business. We haven't really had a client where we've seen it just doesn't get leads. It always gets leads. So it will work for your business, but you just have to stick with it, and take the mindset of just doing, A/B tests and learning from each test, and then coming up with the next series of campaigns after that, right? So don't just run one campaign and just declare whether it works or not. Definitely keep with it.
AJ, it's been a great conversation. I hope some people take some of your advice to heart because it really matters. I resonate with that so much. Somebody wants to get a hold of your website. How's the best way?
Yeah, thanks, Rob, and definitely thanks for having me. It was a fun conversation, and I hope the listeners can put it to good use and see a lot of success for their business with trying cold outreach as a channel. So the best way to contact me would be, well, my email is aj@revenueboost.net. And then I'm active on LinkedIn and Facebook. That's the best way to get in touch on social media. We also started a YouTube channel in the past year where I just give a lot of tutorials on how all this stuff works, which is just my name, AJ Cassata.
Yeah. Thanks, AJ. Have an amazing day, my friend. Be well.
Awesome. Thanks a lot.
This podcast has been brought to you by Stunning Digital Marketing, your digital marketing concierge to help the business owner put all his pieces together, whether it's email marketing, WordPress security, WordPress design and development, PPC, and more. Text Stunning Digital Marketing for all your digital marketing needs today. A very special thank you to AJ for joining me on this edition of the SDM Show. The SDM Show is dedicated to my late father, Bruce Cairns. Dad, I miss you very much every day. My mother, Ann Cairns, who's still doing really well and is an inspiration. And of course, Tiz Maroney. And Tiz, I know I've said it, but thank you so much for all the inspiration you give me every day.